Warning. My friends and I had just left a party at a local bar, and we were walking back to my house, seeing how it wasn't too far away from where we were. On our way back, we happened to come across a small lot sandwiched between two apartment buildings that was filled with black garbage bags and piles of tires. Rich proposed going in, and after a few minutes of consideration, Dennis and I agreed. Obviously, there was nothing special or fun about a rotten, smelling junkyard, but we were a bit drunk, so the idea seemed great at the time. We decided to play a game called King of the Hill on a fort of tires that stood before us. Basically, we were just pushing each other off the top. After a while of climbing up and falling down, we took a break by sitting against one of the dumpsters that stood near the entrance. As I tried to get a hold of my breath, I gazed around the small dump, and I noticed something I failed to spot out before. There was a white grocery bag hanging from the fence in the back corner of the junkyard. I figured that someone tried to throw it over, but it got caught in the fence on its way down. The bag seemed to be filled with something. It had blocky edges poking out from all sides. I know something as plain as a grocery bag isn't much, but it still intrigued me. "Hey," I said as I nudged Rich, who happened to be sitting next to me. "Look over there." Dennis leaned out behind Rich and looked towards where I was pointing. "So, it's just a few rips. No one's going to care about whether or not the bags are torn," said Rich. He was pointing out the tears our shoes had left in the trash bags when we were playing our little game. "No, the grocery bag hanging from the fence," I said. "So? Well, it's filled with something." "And?" said Dennis. I shrugged. "Don't you guys want to know what's inside?" "No," Rich chuckled. "It's just trash, man." "What if it was something like jewelry?" I said as I stood, and I made my way towards the grocery bag. "You're just going to find a dead cat in there, dude," Dennis hollered as I struggled to climb the mountain of garbage bags that blocked my path. His sentence was followed by the two of them, laughing. I didn't really care what they had to say. I was just a bit curious, that's all. Once I made my way to the other side, I reached for the grocery bag and grabbed it. Inside of it was a whole bunch of cassette tapes and an old Walkman. "No way, you guys gotta see this," I called to my friends. "Did you find a leprechaun's gold?" Rich mocked. "Hold on, I'm coming." Hastily I climbed the pile of trash and walked back to where they were sitting. "Look at this." I held the bag open, letting Rich and Dennis view its contents. I pulled out the tape and read its label. "Journal, Entry 1. I put on another, Entry 3. I read. "No way, it's someone's diary," said Dennis. "I wonder why they threw it away," I said. "Probably because they realized how stupid they were for keeping a diary," said Rich. "Whatever." I dropped the bag on the ground. "It's 1 a.m. We should be heading back." "Whoa, whoa, whoa," said Dennis, as he snatched the bag up from the pavement. "What the hell you doing, man? Don't you guys want to listen to these?" "Well, it could be a bit funny," said Rich. "Journal, Entry 1, started Dennis in a stereotypical British voice. "I walked my dog, Bonbon, today at the park and came across a rather odd squirrel." I laughed. "Dennis, you're such an ass." "Fine, let's take them with us." We left the junkyard and continued to walk down the street towards my house. I remember how excited I was to listen to those tapes. Stupid, I know, but the thought of listening to someone's personal life sounded interesting to me. Once we arrived at my house, I unlocked the door and immediately walked towards the dining room. Dennis set the bag down at the center of the table and pulled out the Walkman. As 3 of us grabbed ourselves at the seat, eager to hear what it had to say, I seized the first tape, put it in, and pressed play. I was surprised at what I heard. The voice wasn't at all what I expected. It seemed to be a boy, who sounded as if he was in his late teens. "Hey, my name's Chris, and I'm a junior in high school. I don't have many friends. Actually, I have none. I guess it's because people don't like me, or maybe because I'm just too weird. I'm not weird, am I? Anyways, that's not why I'm here. It's actually because my uncle gave me this Walkman and a few tapes. He said that the Walkman used to be his, and that he just didn't have the heart to throw it away, because he used it so much as a kid. So he made it my birthday present. Well, I didn't have the heart to let it catch dust in the corner, so here I am, using it. Maybe it'll come in handy one day. I don't really know. Should I go on with telling about myself? Well, my favorite class is science, and I'm extremely bad at math. Blue is my favorite color, and I prefer dogs over cats. A door slams in the background, causing all of us to jump. That was my mom. Her and my dad have been arguing a lot lately for reasons I can't bother to figure out why. I know for one thing that my dad is thinking about calling a divorce, which doesn't really bother me. It would bother anyone else, though, but it doesn't bother me. That's not weird, right? I've been hearing a lot lately that I'm a little weird. I don't see why, though. I eat, drink, sleep, and I live like a normal human being. That's what I think, anyways. Maybe it's just because I'm not as talkative as everyone else. Or what if everyone's just making it up, so they would have a reason to pick on me? Frankly, I can't see why anyone would want to pick on me in the first place. What a loser, said Dennis. I can see why people want to pick on him. I shrugged. Let's play the next one. It's January 14th, which is 3 days since I've made the last tape. I decided that I'm going to continue making these tapes and keep it as my journal. Who knows, maybe I'll look back at these old recordings one day when I'm a bit older for a small dose of nostalgia. I'm making this a short one because I have to leave in about 5 minutes. My mom's taking me to some stupid jewelry party at one of the neighbors' house because, according to her, I absolutely have to be there, or we're going to make a bad impression. So here I am, sitting in dress pants, a white button-up, and a stupid tie. I don't have dress shoes, so I just wore an old pair of Nike sneakers, which makes the situation about 500 times worse. Maybe in the next tape, I'll talk about how the party went. Hopefully it went well enough for me to talk about it. We looked at each other and laughed. Nike sneakers? Rich muttered in an almost giggly tone. Should I seriously play the next one? I'm not sure if I can handle listening to this for another 10 tapes, I asked. Dennis and Rich nodded, with giant grins on their faces. January 16th. I was punched in the face at school today by a senior whose name is Jake. Honestly, I don't even know the guy. To make my day even more wonderful, I ended up eating outside in the rain, because all the seats in the cafeteria were taken by the time I got back from the nurse's office. I could have simply cleaned up the blood pouring from my nose by myself in the bathroom, but one of my teachers, Mrs. Hoffington, insisted that I go to the nurse. While I was at the nurse, I managed to get a glimpse of myself when I passed a tall mirror that hung on the outside of the bathroom door. I was a bit amazed at the amount of blood that was smudged across my face. Actually, it was kind of cool. I felt a small amount of pride when I got a good look at my face. Probably because I've never actually spit that much blood in my life before. Jake got suspended, by the way, for a week to be exact. I think he should be expelled, so that I didn't have to see him again. Oh yeah, and, by the way, the jewelry party went well. No one noticed my Nike sneakers, and the food was good. A small amount of shock appeared on our faces. Damn, he got punched in the face, I said. Someone must have known he was making stupid-ass tapes in his bedroom, said Dennis. How can you even be happy about getting a bloody nose? Rich added. What the hell was wrong with him? I shook my head. I don't know, man. January 20th. While fooling around on YouTube for about 2 hours, I came across a weird documentary on something called the Slender Man. It's an odd creature with no face, wearing what looks to be a suit that has tentacles, giving it a dark, spidery look. It's said to lurk in the forests, and that once you see it, it stalks you before actually claiming you as its victim. No one really knows what the Slender Man actually does to his or its victims, and that's all we really know, is that they go missing without a trace. I guess a lot of people are creeped out about this, and I can see why. The photos that depict him look pretty disturbing, but what actually generates the most fear are the stories about him. Actually, I've been listening to them all night. I'm not scared at all, just intrigued. Turns out, these stories come from a site where people just write and submit a whole bunch of creepy stories. Not all of them are about Slender Man. I've heard a couple that talk about lost episodes of famous TV shows that depict some disturbing, twisted version of the actual show. I've also heard stories about serial killers, ghosts, and whatever else that's remotely scary. Some are more gruesome, while others are just a bit eerie. I, for one, have never found any of these stories to be scary. I usually find myself thoroughly mystified as I read. We all glance at each other, a bit confused about what Slender Man is, I guess the kid was a horror fan. I put in the next tape and held my head in my hands, wanting to go to sleep. January 26th. Did I ever mention the site where I found all these stories from? Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, now that I think about it, these stories have showed me how much the darkness can exist in this world. You're never actually aware of it until you start thinking about it. What I'm saying is, not crazy, it's true. Darkness lurks in the hidden corners of everyday life, right here, right now. As I'm saying this, a person is getting brutally murdered. Immediately after he said that sentence, my head shot up, and I looked at Dennis and Rich, bewildered at what I just heard. They shook their heads and shrugged. Somewhere out there's a person dying. Could be a full-grown man, or a child. You never realized it until you heard me say it just now. But, hey, that's the real world for you. Lately, I've been noticing how everyone else in my school is so blissfully ignorant to the horrible things in this world. Well, I'm being constantly reminded of it. No one sees what I see. It kind of makes them all look a little bit dumb. Don't they see? Don't they notice what happens around them? They hear the sirens echo down the road, and it could just be a plain car crash. But what if it was caused by something far from our reach? They don't know that. Their eyes aren't opened wide enough to notice. At least I'm aware of it. February 2nd. Have you ever noticed how much death is involved in the average scary story? It's almost as if death is a needed element in the story. Ever since I started reading these stories, I've become pretty comfortable with the thought of dying. Aren't we all going to face it one day? Sooner for some people, later for the rest. There was a long pause before he spoke again. I've been thinking about writing my own scary story soon. After reading everyone else's, I figured I should try it for myself. It's worth a shot, isn't it? February 17th. They didn't accept my story. What was wrong with it? Was my grammar off? Was the spelling bad? All I wanted was for it to be out there, for everyone to see. Hell, it was probably one of the greatest ideas they ever came across. But his voice became angry and a bit frustrated, almost as if he was about to go off on a full-blown rant. But they turned it down. Are they too stupid to see the brilliance in what I wrote? On top of that, I found two assholes who decided to read it and make a mockery of my hard work. Idiots. There's a bunch of idiots who can't see the genius in one's work. A loud scream erupted from the speakers of the Walkman, and a hard thud was heard after. I figured that he had just thrown it out of anger. I wonder what the story sounded like, and why they turned it down. The next tape started, and we immediately realized how angry he was. He spoke in a loud, irritable tone, which was almost terrifying. February 22nd. Stupid people. Stupid, stupid people. I shouldn't have to deal with them every day. Once I walk through that school's front door, I'm surrounded by them. They're too preoccupied with their lives and what comes tomorrow instead of what comes at the very end. Did I tell you that I was pushed down the stairs today? Ben Trinner, he did it. And this time, I'm not letting it go. I'm going to find him, and he's going to pay. February 25th. I've never felt so happy before in my life. You can't even imagine the butterflies I got when I saw him in a worthless attempt at fighting for his life. And no one heard a thing. I was able to open one of the first doors of the window without a hitch. Thank God. It took me about 30 minutes to walk up the stairs without making a noise. Had to be careful, for even the slightest of all noises can awake someone. When I got into his room, I was able to open the door without him waking up, and everything else that followed seemed to happen so quick, almost as if my memories of the event were a flipbook. I quickly covered his mouth. I wanted to laugh at his squirming body as he died, but I didn't, out of fear of his parents walking in. I pulled open his bedroom window, jumped out, and ran. I think I hurt something near my foot when I landed, but I didn't care. All I could feel was a cold, bitter wind slicing across my smiling cheeks as I ran. The last tape clicked, and we all looked at each other with a grin on our faces. We knew what we just witnessed in the past 10 minutes, but none of us wanted to acknowledge it, or believe it was real. After sitting up in silence for what seemed to be like 20 minutes, I spoke up. I'm leaving. I don't want to take part in this anymore. I stopped him. Wait, you can't go. What are you going to do with these tapes? Effing burn them. Get rid of them. Pretend it didn't happen. I'm leaving, said Rich. Dude, calm down. We have to figure it out. We have to know what he did. He could still be out there, I said. Dennis, cut in. We should hand them over to the police. Maybe they could do something. Really? And you know what else the police would do if we give them these tapes? Effing nothing. We gotta figure out what this is on our own. Oh yeah, sir Dennis. You want to solve this big mystery? I know you want to know who he is, but you shouldn't try messing with something that could kill you. Sure, he might kill me, but he also might kill a shitload of other people. We have to figure out where this effer is. You're not just some kind of hero, Jake. I wouldn't bother messing with it, said Rich. I'm not trying to be a hero. What do you guys think I'm going to do? Walk outside with a flashlight and call his name like a lost dog? All I want to do is a little research, that's all. We stood in uneasy silence for a moment. Why were those tapes hanging on the fence in the first place? Asked Dennis. He was right. Why were they hanging on the fence? Do you think someone had already found them and was trying to get rid of them? I asked. Look, guys, said Rich. It's like 3 a.m. We're a bit tired, and we're all confused. So trying to figure this out now would be useless. Dennis and I looked at each other and nodded a bit sheepishly, realizing how true that statement was. Rich started to walk towards the door, and Dennis followed him soon after. I'll catch up with you later, Jake, said Rich as he opened the door. Making his way out, Dennis waved a goodbye at me and shut the door behind him. The sound of the door clicking shut gave me a sense of finality, and the silence that followed afterwards was almost sickening. I walked into the living room and turned on the TV, hoping to uplift the heavy atmosphere the tapes had caused. I grabbed my laptop, sat on the couch, and turned it on. While it was starting up, I looked in the dining room, staring at the cassette tapes and Walkman that still sat there on the table, until I heard the Windows startup sound calling for my attention. I immediately opened Google and searched for the murders and deaths in this area, but nothing came close to what Chris had described. I tried looking for the school he went to, hoping I would get some clues, but that didn't work either. I sat for a second, staring at the Google search bar, till I came across an idea. I clicked on a URL box and typed in scary stories. A site with a background and white text came up, with a simple heading, Scary Stories. I scrolled through the page and read some stories and announcements. This is what he was obsessed over? I muttered to myself. Sure, some of these stories are kind of scary, but it certainly wasn't anything that could drive someone to kill. How long has this site been up? It doesn't seem that old. This is probably around since my senior year. I shut down the laptop and turned off the TV. After I got up, I walked into the dining room and shoved all the tapes back into the bag. I decided that I would hand the tapes over to the authorities the next morning. I barely went to sleep that night because I was still shooken up over what I had just witnessed earlier, and as I laid in bed, it almost seemed as if there was a presence, like someone besides myself was there. I quickly shrugged it off as my paranoia mind, causing me to feel things that weren't even there, and I fell asleep soon after. When I awoke, it was around 12 in the afternoon. I had slept late, which wasn't surprising, seeing that I went to bed around 5. I didn't even bother to eat or brush my teeth after I got up. I just got dressed, grabbed the tapes, and got in the car. The tapes and Walkman were sitting in the passenger seat. They seemed to emit some uneasy feeling throughout the ride, which only made me more eager to get rid of them. When I arrived at the police station, I quickly grabbed the tapes and entered the building. I didn't even bother to turn the car off. The building's lobby was vacant, and the only person who was there was a cop sitting at the desk, sipping coffee and filling out paperwork. I dropped the bag on the counter, causing the man to look up from his work. "Can I help you?" he said in a somewhat irritable tone. I think I've sold a few disappearances." He raised an eyebrow at me and glanced towards the filled grocery bag that sat on the desk. "Those?" he asked. I nodded quickly. He sighed, grabbed the bag, and put it on the floor next to him. "All right. I'll present it to my authorities when I can." "Aren't you the authorities?" I asked, a bit frustrated at how little he was concerned. "Listen, I only hand out speed tickets and search for lost parents at the mall, but right now, I'm doing this here paperwork, and when I get the chance, I'll hand them over to the authorities." I nodded with some disappointment and left, relieved that I didn't have to close those tapes anymore. Once I got home, I grabbed my mail and opened the front door. As I made my way to the living room, I tossed a stack of bills on the table. I was surprised to hear something hard hit the wooden surface. When I looked back, I noticed that the manila folder that laid among the white envelopes wasn't filled with sheets of paper, but a small object. A bit curious, I went back and opened it. I cringed when I saw what the folder had revealed. Inside the folder was a small, black cassette tape, labeled Entry 15. No, this wasn't possible. It had to be Richard Dennis. There's no way another tape was sent to me. We were the only ones who listened to them that night, and I was certain no one saw us, except for a few cars that passed when we were walking down the street. I wanted to hear what the tape said, but I remembered I gave the Walkman to the police. I searched my basement for a radio, anything that could play this damn tape. I had to know what it said. Finally, after searching for what seemed like an hour, I came across a box in the basement that had a small cassette player inside. Hastily, I grabbed the dusty object from the box and ran back upstairs. As soon as I reached the table, I put the tape inside the player and pressed play, hoping to hear that this tape and the others was just a sick joke one of my friends had planned out. But once I heard the voice, my stomach dropped, and I felt as if I was going to puke. April 12th. Hello, Jake. What did you think about my game? It took me a while to get it ready, but it was all worth it. I knew your little curious mind wouldn't be able to help itself. I'm surprised at how smoothly this all went out, actually. You and her friend Billy noticed me when I put that bag on the fence, and you went and grabbed it, almost as if it was on cue. Are you still surprised, Jake? I've been keeping a close watch on you ever since I killed Ben, but I never actually carried out on anything till now. I knew I had to save the best for last, just for you. And now that I think about it, the waiting was worth it. I'm shocked. Jake, you seem like you don't even recognize me at all. Don't you remember punching me in the face back in high school? I started to hear the sound of leaves shuffling. It sounded as if you were walking through the woods. You guys look pretty scared over there. What you heard in that last tape? I can see right through the window. Once the tape had stopped, slowly, unwillingly, I looked towards the window on the south side of the dining room. There was nothing there, except for bushes that stood directly in front of the glass. Terrified, I ran towards the phone to call the cops. When I heard a voice on the other end, I jumped into a panic. Hello? I desperately asked the phone. As I spoke, I patrolled the house, making sure that all the windows and doors were locked. Oh, it's you again, said the policeman I met earlier. Listen, I told you I'd get you when I can't. Someone's after me. I just received another tape in my mail, and there were threats directed towards me on it. I think it's the same person who made those tapes. I can give you... He's going to kill me. The officer spoke in a bored tone. Well, make sure that everything's locked up first. He paused. Now, are you sure it's not one of your friends trying to mess with you? I'm absolutely sure it's not one of my friends. Please, send someone out here, I pleaded. Sorry, but all you can do for now is make sure that no one can get in. Just go up to your room and quietly read a book or something. I slammed the phone back on the hook. He's not listening to me. I grabbed my laptop and headed up to my room. I didn't notice before, but I was the Jake Chrissy mentioned in one of those tapes, and now he was back to get me. Just like how he had killed Ben, I shut my door behind me and locked it, hoping it would serve as an extra layer of defense. I decided I would document what happened to me and submit it to Scary Stories, so it could serve as a warning for everyone out there. And that's how I got here, typing desperately on my laptop. I just heard some glass break downstairs, and I'm becoming more terrified by the second. I'm going to try and finish it up the best I can. Please, for everyone's sake, if you happen to have a thing for scary stories, don't get too obsessed, or you may turn to what you originally have feared. If not, then watch out for those who are vulnerable to becoming the monster that Chris is.